Hey there, welcome back to part 13. This one's going to be fun. We're aiming to create the air intake and get started on the gas tank. So to start things off, we're going to bring up the gizmo. And then in the gear menu, go ahead and choose the polyplane. Make sure the polyplane consists of one poly. You're going to want to mask out the points and then make adjustments using the gizmo. After that, let's drop in an edge loop and reposition those points using the gizmo. Select extrude for the edge actions. Go ahead and adjust the points with the gizmo to match the reference better. Let's flip to the top view and turn on double. Using the gizmo, just move it backwards a bit. Next, let's add in 4 edge loops by selecting Insert Multiple Edge Loops. Then you're going to want to use QMesh All Polygons to give it a bit of thickness. Now for the edge action, select Move Infinite Radius, and for the target, choose Edge Loop Complete. You're going to want to grab the Move Infinite Depth brush and adjust the top and bottom points. Unmask the middle edges and execute a really low Polish by Features to smooth out the shape. I'm going to use the Move brush instead of the Move Infinite Depth brush because I just want to influence these top points. Our goal here is to create the separation and form from the top view, and then in the front view, we'll give it its height. Let's flip to the bottom view and adjust those points with the Move brush to make it more similar to the reference. Now you might have picked up on this by now, but a fair bit of my modeling involves what's known as vert pushing. It's also referred to as vertex manipulation. And in ZBrush, we do this with masking in the gizmo, the ZModeler brush, or the Move brush. Vert pushing can be a pretty powerful technique in 3D modeling if you're looking for precision and flexibility, but it does have its downsides. It can be time consuming and requires a good understanding of topology. It is often used in conjunction with other modeling techniques to achieve the best results. Alright, let's move on to the next part. Tag these two faces using Alt and then inset a single poly. Now we can remove the polygroup island on both the front and the back. Take a minute to readjust the points to create a nice even poly loop. Let's use extrude for the edge action, edge loop for the target, and perpendicular angle for the modifier. Next up, select transpose edge loop complete. Let's snap it to the top view, turn on double to view both sides, and use the gizmo to move it into position. Go ahead and add in some edge loops. Then select Move Infinite Radius for the edge action, Edge Loop Complete for the target, and adjust the shape of the air intake. Since we've talked a bit about vertex manipulation in this video, let's also touch on topology and edge flow and how they relate to both organic and hard surface modeling. I realize we've been throwing these terms around, but we really haven't unpacked what they mean and what constitutes good edge flow. Also, for this discussion, while we're digging into this, I'll be focusing more on film-based use, even though some of these points are relevant to other CG fields as well. Good edge flow in 3D topology refers to the optimal organization and arrangement of edges and polygons in a mesh. allowing for smooth deformations, efficient rendering, and ease of editing. It is an essential aspect of 3D modeling, especially for models that require animation or further modifications. So what makes up good edge flow? Let's look at the key traits. Number 1, loops and rings. Good edge flow typically consists of continuous edge loops or rings that follow the natural contours and shapes of the model. This arrangement allows for efficient deformation during animation and makes it easier to add or remove detail by adding or removing edge loops. Number 2, even distribution of geometry. Polygons should be evenly spread across the surface of the model to maintain uniform smoothness and avoid unwanted artifacts during rendering or deformation. This is especially important for models that will undergo subdivisions or displacement mapping. Number 3, quads and minimal triangles. A solid edge flow is primarily made up of 4-sided polygons or quads with a minimal number of triangles. Quads are a top pick because they deform in a more predictable manner during animation and are more compatible with subdivision algorithms. While triangles can be necessary at times, they should be used sparingly and strategically placed to minimize potential issues. Number 4, proper pole placement. Poles are vertices where more than 4 edges converge. They can create distortion and artifacts during deformation and subdivisions. Good edge flow ensures that poles are placed in areas that minimize their impact, such as less visible or less deforming regions of the model. Number 5, clean and efficient topology. A well-organized and clean topology is free of unnecessary or redundant edges, vertices, or polygons. Good edge flow eliminates n-gons, which are polygons with more than 4 sides. Good edge flow also eliminates non-manifold geometry and other irregularities that may cause issues during rendering, texturing, or animation. Number 6, supporting edge loops for deformation. Character models and objects that require animation? Good edge flow includes supporting edge loops around joints, facial features, and other areas of deformation. These loops help maintain the model's shape and volume during movement, resulting in a more realistic and predictable animation. So in summary, good edge flow is an essential aspect of 3D topology that ensures efficient deformation, ease of editing, and better rendering results. It involves creating clean, organized, and well-distributed geometry that follows the natural contours and shape of the model. Alright, let's keep moving. Go ahead and set the smooth subdiv to 4 and the crease level to 2. Now let's turn off double and extrude all polygons to add some thickness. Go ahead and press flip and crease PG. Turn on dynamic and Q-mesh the back polys out. Do some last minute crease adjustments with the ZModeler brush. And then hit Ctrl W to group visible. Bring up the gizmo's gear and choose polyplane. Make sure it's a single face and use the gizmo to scale it down. Mask off the top edge, move it down, and then taper it in a bit. From the ZModeler brush, choose Insert Multiple Edge Loops. Now we can add a few more edge loops. Then we can go ahead and select Deformer Saw from the gizmo and begin shaping the top part of the gas tank. We'll do more modification using the gizmo and masking. From the ZModeler brush, let's choose Slide for the edge action, and for the target, pick Edge Loop Complete. Let's turn on dynamic, set the flat subdivisions to 2 and the smooth subdivisions to 4. Then turn off post subdiv. Increase the thickness and set the offset to -100. Next, bring up the gizmo again and select Deformer Soft from the gear. We're about to create the side profile for the top of the tank. Once we're satisfied with the shape, return to the gear and press Accept to lock it in. Let's add an edge loop down the middle using Insert Multiple Edge Loops. Now we can grab the slice brush to add an edge loop. Press Mirror and Weld on the x-axis. Next, slide the points to create a base edge flow for the gas cap. Alt-tag the middle polys to give them a new polygroup. Unmask the polygroup and inflate using a gizmo. To do this, just press Ctrl while scaling. Use the Clip Curve brush to adjust the shape. Let's clear the mask and press Ctrl W to group visible. Assign a polygroup to the 6 middle polys and reposition the points. Unmask the polygroup and run a Polish by Features. Activate dynamic and set the flat subdivisions to 0. From the ZModeler brush, choose Inset for the polygon action, Polygroup Island for the target, and Standard for the modifier. Then we can press Crease PG. Unmask the blue polygroup and run a Polish by Features. Let's bring up the gizmo and scale it a little bit. Then do another Inset Polygroup Island. Press Crease PG to reset the creasing. Then unmask the polygroup and run another Polish by Features. Move the edge loop a bit closer, then delete the inner polygroup. Let's go ahead and mask the inner poly loop and the border with Mask by Features, which you can find in the Mask menu under the Tool palette. Then run a Polish by Features. Transpose the polygroup island and move it upwards a tad. Then we can flatten it by scaling. Go ahead and hide the poly loop and press Ctrl W to group visible. Now we can press Crease PG to reset the creasing. Unmask the rear 8 polys and run a Polish by Features to smooth out the mesh. Add another edge loop near the hole and adjust the fall off with Polish by Features. Finally, from the ZModeler brush, Use slide edge loop complete to adjust the rim's thickness. Let's go ahead and grab the slice curve brush and make a slice on the right side of the mesh. Bring up the ZModeler brush and collapse the edges down. Then run a mirror and weld along the x-axis. From the edge action, pick mask, and for the target, choose edge loop partial. Go ahead and make sure the symmetry is active on the x-axis. Now invert the mask and bring up the gizmo. Snap it to the side view and press Ctrl while scaling to inflate the edges. Press Ctrl W to group visible. You might need to do a few final point adjustments. Let's go ahead and select slide for the point action and by brush size for the target. Then choose crease edge loop partial. Now, as we start shaping the side of the gas tank by extruding edges, let's take a moment to chat about the importance of polygroups, especially in hard surface modeling. Polygroups in ZBrush are a very useful feature. They allow you to assign different colors to different groups of polygons within a single mesh. When it comes to hard surface modeling in ZBrush, polygroups bring a number of benefits to the table. They can streamline your workflow and help you manage complex models more effectively. Here are some key reasons why you want to use polygroups in hard surface modeling. Number 1, selection and manipulation. Working with complex hard surface models can be challenging, but polygroups makes it easier to select and manipulate specific parts of the model. This allows for more precise control over editing and sculpting individual areas without affecting the rest of the model. Number 2, masking and visibility. Polygroups can be used to mask or hide specific parts of the model, allowing artists to focus on specific areas or protect parts of the model from being accidentally altered during the sculpting process. Number 3, splitting into subtools. Polygroups makes it easy to split a model into different subtools. This is useful for managing complex models with multiple parts and for optimizing workflows in ZBrush. Number 4, visual organization. Hard surface models often contain numerous components and intricate designs. Polygroups provide a visual method for organizing these parts, making it easier to manage and work with complex models, allowing artists to work more efficiently. Number 5, panel loops and extract. Polygroups let you create panel loops or extract geometry from a mesh based on the assigned groups. This simplifies the process of creating separate panels or components, which are common in hard surface designs like machinery, vehicles, or robotic characters. Number 6, Boolean operations. Polygroups can help you handle Boolean operations, such as libooleans, by grouping separate elements that are part of a single Boolean operation. This enhances the organization and clarity of the model, making it easier to edit later with ZRemesher. Number 7, topology control. When using ZRemesher for automatic retopology, polygroups can be used to define specific regions or region borders that need extra attention. This ensures that the resulting topology adheres to the desired edge flow and polygon density for hard surface models. Number 8, creasing and beveling. Polygroups can be used to define and control edge creasing and beveling in ZBrush. By assigning polygroups to specific areas, artists can maintain sharp edges and clean transitions between different surfaces, which is essential for hard surface modeling. Number 9, UV mapping. In hard surface modeling, polygroups can assist in creating UV layouts by defining UV seams and islands. This leads to quicker UV mapping and works extremely well with surface noise and alphas. Number 10, ZModeler. ZModeler uses polygroups in ZBrush to provide accurate control and flexibility when creating and editing hard surface models. By targeting and assigning polygroups, you can efficiently carry out specific actions and streamline the workflow. In summary, polygroups in ZBrush offer a huge range of benefits for hard surface modeling, including improved organization, panel creation, topology control, and Boolean workflows. By harnessing the power of polygroups, artists can more effectively handle complex hard surface models and achieve better results. Let's dive in and start extruding these edges. Select Delete a single poly, then uncrease the edges. Now choose Stitch for the point action and 2 points for the target. Next, we're going to insert 2 edge loops. Let's turn on symmetry along the x-axis and start spacing out the edges using the slide action for both the edge and point actions. Then we can go ahead and choose Collapse Edge. This will give us more room to get rid of the triangle. Now snap it to the side view and reposition the point with Slide from the ZModeler brush. After that, select Bridge for the edge action and Edge for the target. Go ahead and press Ctrl W to group visible. Alright, let's keep going and extrude down the edges and adjust the points. Go ahead and select Stitch for the point action and 2 points for the target. Let's get rid of any unwanted creases, then collapse the edges to continue the line. Don't forget to continue to extrude down the edges and adjust the points as needed. Let's take a quick detour and talk about how to interpret forms and shapes and references and bring that information into the 3D world. There are parts of this model that have some complex shapes and angle changes, which can be a little tricky to translate from a 2D reference image into 3D. So here are some pointers to help you make sense of forms and shapes in reference images and how to apply that knowledge to your 3D modeling. First one is collect multiple references. Sometimes the challenge comes from not having enough references. Gather a bunch of reference images from different angles, perspectives, and close-ups of the object you're looking to model. The more diverse your references, the better you'll understand the object's form and shape. Second, break down shapes and forms. Take a good look at your reference images and identify basic shapes like cubes, spheres, cylinders, and cones that make up the object. Breaking down complex forms into simpler shapes can help you understand the underlying structure and translate it into your 3D model. Next up is keep an eye on proportions. Notice the size, position, and alignment of various shapes and forms relative to each other. Understanding these relationships will help you recreate the object more accurately in 3D. Next, we have spot patterns and symmetry. Identify any patterns, repetitions, or symmetrical elements in your reference images. This will help streamline your modeling process and ensure consistency across your model. Then there's evaluate lighting and shadows. Study how light interacts with the object in your reference images, focusing on highlights, shadows, and reflections. This can help you understand the depth and form of the object. In addition, try to match or move your light around in a 3D scene to better inform you of your modeling decisions. Next one is sketch it out. Drawing or sketching the object from your references can help you internalize its form and shape. Plus, it familiarizes you with the structure and proportions, which makes it easier to translate the forms and shapes into your 3D model. Lastly, trace it if you have to. If drawing isn't your thing, try overlaying simple shapes or tracing the object. This can help you visualize the underlying structure and make it easier to recreate in 3D. But here's a quick note. Both drawing and tracing are techniques used when you are visually struggling transferring the 2D information into the 3D canvas. So these are some of the strategies I use when studying reference images. They help develop the skill of reading forms and angle changes and bringing that information into your 3D modeling process. The result is a more accurate and visually appealing model that closely resembles your reference material. So here's a cool little trick for smoothing your geometry while keeping the shape intact without deformations. First off, let's store a morph target. Then alt tag these polygons to give them a fresh polygroup. Unmask the polygroup and run a polish with an open circle a few times to space out the topology. Now we can clear the mask and run a project morph to 100. What's cool about this is it doesn't align the points back to their original position in space. Instead, it projects back to the original volume of the mesh, which is fantastic for smoothing out low poly meshes without losing any volume. This way you maintain the form you worked so hard to create. From the side view, let's start extruding out those edges. On the fourth edge, extrude it just a little before it snaps to any point. In point action, choose Stitch. Then we can weld the points together to achieve the angle we need. Let's move the points upwards just a bit so we can add another edge loop. Move those points up a touch more to get a closer match to our reference. Unmask those bottom edges and flare them out. What we're aiming to do is soften that sharp transition. Now we can press Ctrl W to group visible. Let's select Insert Multiple Edge Loops from the ZModeler brush and add in 4 edge loops. Next, uncrease the edges if needed. From the ZModeler brush, select Stitch for the point action, 2 points for the target, and to endpoint for the modifier. Let's alt tag the polygons to assign them to a new polygroup. Unmask the blue polygroup and mask the border as well. Run a polish with an open circle to polish it to the max. Then use Polish by Features to sink it in a bit. Go ahead and clear the mask and snap it to the side view. Slide the points around to tweak the silhouette. Press Ctrl W to group visible and do a few more point adjustments. Now we want to extrude all polygons to add some thickness. Then press Flip to correct those normals. Turn on dynamic and make sure the thickness is set to 0. Dial the smooth subdivisions up to 4 and the crease level to 2. Now it's time for a little crease cleanup. Next, let's extrude the poly loop at the bottom to remove the pinching from the creases caused by the poles.